Oh, wow. Hey, Atlas, UDFs went GA in PBI. Yeah, that was a lot of acronyms. But I want to show the viewers that in today's video, we have a CLI, another acronym, in preview that can help automate testing in Power BI. All right, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can stay up to date on all the new content and features we'll be rolling out in the coming weeks. And with that, in prior videos, I went over how to use our PQL.Assert library, which is part of the user defined functions in Power BI, so that you could standardize the way you do testing. And then I had videos on how to use Power Automate to run through the semantic model and tell you whether or not you have tests that are failed or passed, and then even use Fabric notebooks to do that type of testing, including testing with RLS and OLS. Now, at the end of this video, I'll put a link to that playlist if you're new to using PQL.Assert, or if you're new just to testing in general for semantic models. But one of the things that if you have been working in the Power Automate or the Fabric or just trying to do this type of testing even with an agent, what's difficult is going through the machinations of retrieving the tests, iterating over the tests, figuring out what annotations to run, especially with OLS and RLS, and then executing the results. There's limitations in how you do that through the APIs or the execute queries API. There's different ways to make the connections to the model, whether it's local or if it's in the service. And so at CFT, what we've been working on is a way so that you can do this through a CLI. And we currently have this in preview, and I want to show you this. But if you're interested, before June 8th, we'll put a Microsoft form link where you can sign up. And if you're part of the early sign up team, we can get you early access to this so that you can test this out. But the goal is so that a CLI is a lot easier to run both by a human through the console, in a GitHub Action, or if you give it a skills file, which we've created, this is a lot easier for an agent to use. To understand, and the skill file, quite frankly, is a lot more terse than what other skill files would have to be written as in order for it to go through and figure out how does it make the connection, how does it deal with the connection if it's an RLS or OLS using effective name or role. And so I want to show you how to actually execute that, what the experience is like, at least in test. And hopefully this gives you an idea of where we can go now with testing in UDFs. And thankfully this week, as of June 2nd, UDFs are GA, meaning they are fully supported by Microsoft, and I can tell you for a fact that they run in commercial, GCC, and DoD tenants. All right, with that, up on my screen here, I've got our TestPyPI CLI. So we've loaded this in the test version of a Python package manager so that we weren't putting it in production just yet. And in this, we go through all the kind of the setup, and I want to show you what that experience is like. We've published, or by the time this video drops, we published a kind of a starter repo on how you can bring it into Visual Studio Code and run this CLI. So let's walk through that real quick. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy the URL, which again I'll put in the YouTube description, and I'm going to open up Visual Studio. Now the assumption I'm going to make here is you've got Visual Studio, you've got Git, and you also have a requirement for Python. Now Python we made a design decision there because this mimics in some cases how the CLI behaves with the Fabric CLI, and we also tend to use Python for some of our CLI techniques in other projects. So if I go to our clone repository. I'm going to paste in that URL. Try that again. I'm going to pick my Git folder, and I'm going to hit open. And I'm going to trust the authors. Now, in the example project, we've got the README for the setup, the requirements.txt file, which we will use for a virtual Python environment, and then the initial PowerShell that you're going to need to help set up the virtual environment. Now, we use virtual environments in Python, especially with projects, so that we don't pollute kind of the global namespace for Python, and it helps kind of reduce some of the variability when you work with Python projects. So whether you're doing it with this project or other Python projects, especially if you're doing this building wheel files with Fabric notebooks, it's really good to have a virtual environment. So on the screen, I'm going to go to New Terminal. I'm going to let that open up here, and there is a command that I'm going to run. I'm just going to copy this. This starts the setup. Oop, there we go. So once this kicks off, what this should be doing is it's going to set up the virtual environment and make sure that all the components are installed, including the test version of the CLI that we have for this project. Now I'm going to fast forward because I'm running this on a VM. It may take a couple seconds for it to complete. Okay, so it finished the install. The next thing we're going to do is run the activate command. So that tells this to create the virtual environment. So now anytime I'm running Python, it's going to do it in the scope of the virtual environment. And I'm going to hit CLS to clear the screen so it's a little more easier to read. So the next thing you're going to do is you would just type in pql-test, which is the CLI, and the version, just to make sure that it actually is installed and available. Now, this relies on ADOMD.NET to execute. And the reason we do that, or at least we made this from a design decision, is that it's been our experience using the ADOMD.NET library for issuing DAX queries over XMLA. This avoids issues with RLS and OLS, and we have a little more control on the connection string so that we can pass in information for running the queries, especially with different security settings that we're trying to test or roles. Now, once I've verified the PQL-test version is running, let's go through at least a couple of the commands. The first that you can do is there's always PQL-test help that will run through the options here. And the options I want to go over today is auth, our retrieve test, and the run test. Those are the big ones. Now, if I have a model open locally, so I've got this sample model. If you've watched prior videos, we've got the UDFs running on these. They've already been predefined. And I'm working on that model and I have it open. You can, instead of having to try to run through all those tabs, you can type in, let's say I just want to retrieve the tests. I can type in this syntax. So local indicates that we're looking to run this against the local model, and then sample model is the name of the model. Now what it will do at this point is look for any of the open analysis services endpoints that are running, and then retrieve the tests by running our retrieve test function that's built into the PQL.Assert. And you can see that it's got the list of tests that are available. This is helpful if you want to see what tests are actually included in a model. And then if I want to just run the tests, all I have to do is swap out retrieve test with run tests. And in kind of the terse mode, it will come back and tell you really quickly which suites have failed. Now, the reason we did this kind of terse to begin with is it's easy to read, but also we know that with agents, tokens are the currency of the realm. So if we can reduce the number of characters in initial runs, this will be helpful. Now, if you want more explicit or more information as to which tests have failed explicitly, you can add in verbose, and you will get a line by line as to what the failures are. So this is helpful. Now, this also will run against a model that has RLS and OLS. Now, if you're using the latest version of PQL.Assert, we've added support for role name. Now, the reason you have to do this is role name is important for running tests locally because you might not don't have the ability to connect it to a user account because it's running in a local instance. So role name is good if you want to test maybe this atlas.kursky is associated with the West group in the service, but you don't have access to run that test using that account while you're in the local mode. So you can add a role name, and you can interchange those as well. So we've added support for that. So I can run another version of this called local RLS model. Let's run that in verbose mode. And it runs the test that we have there using the West security group role. So that's helpful. Now let's say that's great. I've got the tests running, but I also want to run these tests against the models in the service. Well, the first thing you are going to do, let me clear the screen again, is you will type in pql-test auth login. And it will ask you if you want to log in interactively. So I'm going to sign in. And at this point, it's successfully signed in. You also see that we have the option for service principal with a secret. There's also parameters where you can add in that login. So if you have a command line in a GitHub Action, you can pass those secrets in from your environmental variables into that command line, which is included in the documentation. All right, so at any time, if I want to see how I'm logged in, I can just type in PQL status. And it'll tell me where I'm located. And now, if I want to run tests against a model I have in the service. So the way that this works is you can go to your model in the service. So in this case, I've got this on a demo workspace. I'm going to copy that. And I already have this laid out in my history, but we followed the Fabric CLI format here. So we'll put the name of the workspace, / the name of the model, .semantic model. So this follows in line with, as much as possible, how the naming conventions were for the model path conventions were in the Fabric CLI. So now if I run it, it's going to connect to the service. It tells me it's connecting to the service, and it's going to run that test. And again, I can run that in verbose mode, but also it's important that I can actually run it in a log format. We support GitHub and Azure DevOps. So if you were running this in a pipeline, this will log it using the appropriate logging conventions for failed or passed tests. You also have the capability to set your output format. So I'm going to type in demo.json for output. So let's say you just want to get the file back. And now we've got the test results here, including the time it took to run. So hopefully you can see the benefit of using the CLI in here. And the kind of important takeaway is we really want to get feedback on this. So whether you have the opportunity to sign up for the testing version of this CLI, again, the Microsoft form is in the link below, or you have ideas just watching this video, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the CLI, what features would be of interest to you when you're running tests or evaluating a semantic model. And hopefully we can continue to grow this and make this what we would consider the NPM test of semantic model testing. And for those who don't understand what NPM test is, there's a node packet module packet manager that you can use to run tests against TypeScript and JavaScript based applications. It's a command line. It's been a kind of a revolutionary way to run tests, or at least coordinate running tests with other tools like Jest or Bun. So what we want to do is bring that same type of capability to semantic model testing, because semantic models are becoming a core component for not only in past the reports, but now Fabric data agents, and now looking even further, we've got other applications like Fabric apps that are connecting to semantic models. And it's very important that our models, whether we build it, leverage AI to build it, are well tested, and the CLI, we're hoping, helps automate that testing to save you time and also prove that your model's in good shape. So in future videos, we'll dive further into this. We'll have more videos around testing on Fabric data agents, but until then, take care.